everybody's just waiting, and we will wait for all eternity, for the mainstream media to start asking, why are so many liberals leaving Mark Carney's cabinet? We have breaking news, everybody. As we've said, a fragile majority is just that, fragile. And we just heard word today of another liberal that is stepping down from Parliament, only to be shipped off overseas by Mark Carney. This brings the Liberals down to 173 seats, just one over that elusive majority. Let's take a look. Carney to appoint Jonathan Wilkinson as EU ambassador, sources say. Prime Minister Mark Carney will appoint Member of Parliament and former Trudeau Cabinet Minister Jonathan Wilkinson as ambassador to the European Union Thursday. The Prime Minister's office said in a statement that Mr. Wilkinson, quote, brings 3 decades of experience at the intersection of public policy, technology, and international economic engagement, end quote. The appointment will not affect the recent Liberal majority, which has achieved after 5 opposition MPs crossed the floor and the government won 3 by-elections. Love how they have to throw that in there, eh? The Liberals will have 173 seats when Mr. Wilkinson leaves, compared with 140 Conservatives, 22 Bloc Québécois, 5 NDP, and 1 Green MP. There is 1 vacancy after Quebec New Democrat Alexandre Boulris announced this week that he was leaving to enter provincial politics. The governing Liberals stand a good chance of holding on to Mr. Wilkinson's North Vancouver Capilano riding. He has held the riding since 2015. Mr. Wilkinson was regarded as a competent minister as Justin Trudeau's Natural Resources Minister. But he was dropped along with former Defence Minister Bill Blair, now serving as High Commissioner in London. In a statement Thursday, Mr. Wilkinson said he is looking forward to the challenge of serving in Brussels and expanding trade ties in the face of U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff war. Quote, the world has changed in fundamental ways, and Canada faces new economic, geopolitical, and environmental tests. Our closest trading relationship has become less predictable, and we are being called to build greater resilience in our economy and alliances, end quote, he said. The EU's envoy role takes on greater weight as Mr. Carney seeks closer diplomatic, economic, and military ties to Europe. The Prime Minister accepted a rare invitation to attend this weekend's summit of the European political community in Armenia. Okay. So let's go. Let's start at the end and work our way back to the beginning. So, you know, if they were throwing a birthday party for a 10-year-old over, you know, in Australia or somewhere else outside of Canada, I'm pretty sure Mark Carney would accept the invitation to get on a jet and expense more food to the Canadian taxpayer just so he could travel around the world. He seems to really hate actually staying in Canada. He seems to really hate being in his riding, and he really seems to hate being in the House of Commons, given that he has been there, you know, less time than Pierre Elliott Trudeau at this point in the last 10 years. So it is really something that Mr. Carney will just find any excuse whatsoever to get on a plane and leave Canada. How's that for putting Canada first? How's that for putting the taxpayer first? How's that for fiscal responsibility, jumping on a plane, costing us taxpayers tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars every single trip? So that's the first piece. Now let's get to Jonathan Wilkinson. So Jonathan Wilkinson, former Minister of Fisheries, former Minister of Environment under Justin Trudeau. He was known to be a climate fanatic and an environmental fanatic on a similar level, but not to the same extent as Stephen Guilbeault. But it was strongly speculated that he would be actually leaving his seat after this MOU with Alberta in the fall. So this isn't a surprise. Talking heads were talking about this, and we brought that information forward as well. So now the Liberals go from 174 down to 173. So everybody's just waiting, and we will wait for all eternity, for the mainstream media to start asking, why are so many Liberals leaving Mark Carney's cabinet? Why is that? What does this say about Mark Carney's leadership? Does it say that there's a problem with his leadership? Does it say that there's cracks in his caucus that he can't deal with, so therefore he's kicking people out, or people are voluntarily leaving and they're getting a severance package of a cushy appointment as a price for keeping the mouth shut? That's what Canadians want to know. And I think Canadians probably can come to the conclusion on their own. But where are these questions about Mark Carney's leadership? I don't recall this many Liberals actually leaving this soon after an election. Makes you ask, why did they run in the first place? Say what you want about the Conservative floor crossers, at least they're staying in Parliament. But the Liberals, they're not even staying in Parliament. So they ran on a seat, cost the taxpayers a whole bunch of money, got paid a bunch of money, and said, yeah, you know what, I'm done. Thank you very much. And I will take a paid appointment as well. Thank you very much. Only to cost taxpayers more money by running another by-election so that another potential Liberal can take their seat. Where's the fiscal responsibility when it comes to that, Mr. Carney? Aspiring Canadians want to know. Now, where does this leave us in the House? Well, let's take a look. Right now, we're showing 174 Liberals, 140 Conservatives, 22 Bloc Québécois, 5 NDP, 1 Green Party, 1 Independent. Now, that 1 Independent is actually Alexander Boulay-Reece. And that Liberal 174 will drop to 173 once Jonathan Wilkinson has actually resigned. So this is what the layout looks like in the House now. So the Liberals now take up all of the seats on the government side, and as you can see, some things have been moved around on the opposition side. So the Conservatives take up the lion's share, the Bloc take up the second most, and then the NDP are stuck in the corner there, and Alexander Boulay-Reece is in that gray seat you can see up there with the other 5 orange. Now on the top left, you'll see a red dot, and no, that's not a mistake. So there's too many Liberals to actually sit on the government side, so they're now spilling over onto the other side of the aisle. So the question is, who did they put there? Well, they were actually somewhat kind. And this is who they put over there. Alexandra Mendez. So Alexandra Mendez, she is one of the speakers of the House. So she has a cordial relationship with a lot of the MPs. So I think this was actually quite courteous of the Liberals to put her over on the other side because A, she has good rapport, she's neutral, and at the same time, you're not going to be putting one of your own in a very awkward position on the other side with the Conservatives. It'd be something if they put somebody like Stephen Guilbeault over there, or Marilyn Gladu, or one of the floor crossers. Wouldn't that be something, eh? But no, they actually put somebody over there that has a good rapport with everybody. Now, when it comes to Alexander Boulay-Reece, so he's in a Quebec riding, and the immediate question comes up, oh, great, now we're going to end up with another Liberal in the House. Well, I don't think that's going to be the case. Check it out. So this is the polling for Alexander Boulay-Reece's riding, La Petite Patrie, and this is the projection. So right now, the NDP are leading by about 9 points in the riding, and if an election were held today, the aggregate is saying that there's a 93% chance that they're going to be actually winning that campaign. So that will be going to a by-election, and I don't think there's any worry that the NDP are going to hold on to that seat. The NDP are going to campaign hard to ensure that they hold on to that seat. The question is will Avi Lewis move over there, or is he going to say, you know what, my French isn't good enough to actually run in a Quebec riding. I'm actually going to defer that to a candidate that is French, and we can actually have a solid representative in Quebec to help boost the other ridings that they're going to try and contend with when the next election comes around. I think that's probably going to be the best strategy, as much as it's going to be important for Avi Lewis to try and get a seat in the House. You don't want to cut your nose off to spite your face, right? So this is where you need to look at strategy versus, your personal ambitions, and you need to look at the long game versus the short game. So if I'm Avi Lewis, I'm going to select a very strong Quebec-based candidate from that riding in order to actually run. Otherwise, you end up with a whole different type of politics that can happen in that campaign. The Liberals will point to Avi and they'll say, oh, he's not even from here. He doesn't understand Quebec. All these different things can creep into a campaign and campaign messaging, and that can shift things very fast. So that's what I think is going to happen when it comes to that by-election and the candidate. And Avi will continue to do what he's going to do, which is to essentially campaign at the House of Commons at the press gallery, since he cannot actually enter and sit in the House. So that's that piece. Now, many of you are probably wondering about Jonathan Wilkinson's seat. Globe and Mail already mentioned this, but we will show you the polls. Here's the polls for North Vancouver Capilano, and you can see that there's a 30-point lead for the Liberals here. This is a seat that they've held for a long, long time, and this is out west. Just want to remind everybody of that. And there's a 99% chance that he wins the seat, but you never know, right? You never know. Our MP, as we love to talk about this, had a less than 1% chance to win his seat on election day. So you never know. So as it comes down to that by-election, it's costing taxpayers money. Thanks, Liberals. And even though there's a 30-point lead, you never know. People come out to vote. A lot of Conservatives come out to vote. Liberals decide to stay home because they think that they have this in the bag. Strange things can happen. And you got to wonder, is the longest ballot going to make an appearance there? I guess we'll see. They could kind of gum this up as well, but we'll wait to see what happens. But coming back to the main point, this is why we tell people, listen, this is a fragile majority. Things will happen. People will resign. People will retire. And just because they have 173 seats in the House now, we've already seen votes that they only had 164 people show up. So you never know what's going to happen, especially with a fragile majority. And it's almost more concerning for the Liberals to actually have that than a full-on majority, because they have to worry about every single vote every single time. And they have to worry about some upstart, maybe, new politician that wants to make a name for themselves and go against the grain. Maybe they want to stand out. Who knows? But one thing's for certain is this majority is definitely fragile, and it's not going to get any harder anytime soon.